الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وتابعين له بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وأزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وذرياته وآل بيته كما صليت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. So, okay. Our biggest problem is that we only meet once every couple of weeks, and sometimes you're not available. So if you miss a class or two, and then I don't know exactly where you are. It's different than when I deal with the brothers' classes because they're here every week. So I'm always exactly sure exactly where they are. So I need you to look at your notes and tell me where you left off, basically. I know you were here last week, Howard, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago. So I think I was on.
Last time you were on excuses and purification for prayer, and you were talking about a Muslim governor can give someone time if someone is constantly delaying their prayer out of laziness.
Yeah, they execute the ones who say that they don't have to pray because only the governor. Because it's not their responsibility or something like that. It's not ordered for them to have to pray. But they will be considered as infidel. But the ones who just say they're lazy, they will execute them too if they don't change their habit. In the Islamic environment, Sharia law, if they don't change their habit. But, you know, in the fiqh, this actually happened. These are cases that actually happen. But nowadays, nobody really practices that. You know, it's like they have to teach it to you because there are actual cases that happen, and they are a part of Islamic law. But nobody's actually executing those Islamic edicts today. They're too busy fighting each other. Anyway, I had intended to teach. Because there were two sisters here that I thought really needed to learn more about the prayer. So I wanted to make sure everybody is praying in the right way. I've been taking it for granted that everybody already knows everything, but that's not a good sign because like when I was dealing with the brothers today, I had some brothers that have been with Muslims over 20 years, and they didn't, some things they just didn't know about their prayer. In any case, I'm just going to test you a little bit. And I'm going to help you through the testing, okay? Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. So, in your prayer, what is the first thing that you do? After wudu, because you know, without purification, there's no prayer. You got to have purification to have prayer, right? So we're going to go past purification. We're going straight to the salah itself.
To make the intention.
The niyyah. That's right. Because without the niyyah, there's no prayer. You know, without niyyah, there's no action. And in this madhab, they have something, they have a word in Arabic called mubah. Mubah in fiqh generally means that it could go one way or the other. It's like it's not specific. In the madhab Imam Malik, they don't have that word mubah is a part of the fiqh. So everything has to be specific. It has to be specified. It has to be this is what this is for. So the niyyah in Imam Malik's madhab, they say without the niyyah, there is no action. It can't be up for grabs, like whether or not this is Zohar or Asr. Everything have to have a niyyah, an intention. So you're right. Then what comes next? Okay. Say it again. I didn't hear you. No, before we get there, we have to have what's called takbiratul ihram. Yeah, because that's it actually, after the niyyah, takbiratul ihram is the next part. It says, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Okay? Then after you do that, okay, let me tell you also something. They have, say it again?
The 14 parts of the prayer.
That's not what I was going to tell you. What I want to tell you is that a lot of schools of thought say Subhanakallahu wa bihamdika wa ta'aruka asbuka wa ta'ala jaduka wa la ilaha ghayruk inside the prayer after the takbir. In the madhab Imam Malik, they don't do that. Those words are not considered as fard. Those words are like they have some benefit, but Imam Malik say they don't belong inside the prayer. You should say those before you say takbir. But I don't teach that method. It's if you like to do it, if you like to say subhanakallahumma wa bihamdi, you have the right to do it, but not inside the prayer. After you say Allahu Akbar, the next thing you say is Al-Fatiha. Now, the hadith, the Quran tells us that before you recite Al-Fatiha or before you recite the Quran, you should always say what's called At-Ta'uz. It means A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. That's not a fard, and it's never done aloud inside your prayer. It's never done aloud, but it's emphasized that you do it before you recite the Quran. So, of course, Al-Fatiha is the first surah in the Quran. So, we're going to recite A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, just as they said before we start to recite Al-Fatiha. Now you have established the beginning of your prayer. Is that somebody tried to call in?
No. See if that's Sister Fatima.
Is that you, Sister Fatima? This one, Sharon?
No, my phone.
No, it was my alarm clock.
Oh, that was okay, Zay.
Sister
Okay.
Fatima is on my cell phone. The sound is not loud, so you may not be able to. You may have to put it up to the ear to see if she has
Well,
a
I tell you what, when she wants to ask her questions, why don't you pick up the phone and you can tell me what she's saying? Okay? Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. Okay, now. After you say takbiratul ihram, and now you know that you always got to recite Atha'uz before you start to recite from the Quran, they have some words that say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now, they have different opinions about Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Some imams say that it goes before each surah. Before you recite each surah, you should say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And if you look in this Quran, you will always see before each surah, except for Surah Tawbah, you will see Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Except for that surah, it's always Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is written in the Quran. So some people say no, that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim should not go before you recite from the Quran all the time. So the jurists give you a choice. They say, okay, because this is why sometimes you hear when they recite, the reciters will always say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Then they'll start to recite. Other group of people who follow one way or the other. In other words, you can't one day say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and then the next day you don't say it. You have to be consistent. Whichever one you're going to do, that's the one that's going to be with you for your life. Okay? Then you're going to say, yes.
So in some of the Qur'ans, if you look on the page that has Surah Al-Fatiha on it, sometimes they'll count Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim as like the first verse. Is that a thing, or is that just like is that just like
in the Arabic Qur'ans,
yeah.
you never see that. I've never seen it.
Yeah. So in the one that's like the most popular printed, the one that like Saudi prints and distributes. So on the first page, the Surah Al-Fatiha is all like ornamental, right? There's like designs around it.
Right.
So, and then Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is like actually like the first ayah.
Oh no. That I don't know about that.
Is that just like a decoration thing?
It must be.
Yeah. Okay.
Because Al-Fatiha is known to have 7 verses. All through hadith,
Yeah.
all through history.
Yeah.
So if now somebody says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is included as a verse, that means that now Al-Fatiha has 8 verses. Can't be. So I don't know why they did that. I've never seen it in my. I have like so many Qur'ans here, make you dizzy, but none of them have that as a verse. It's considered as, a prelude to the first verse, but not a verse itself. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you decide that you're going to use this all the time before you recite, then you have to use it all the time. If you're not going to use it, if you're going to do like many people from Bangladesh, they don't use Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before they recite. They go straight to Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So that means that from that time on, that is their methodology of reciting. In any case, whichever one you do is okay. But to make Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim a verse itself, no, they would disagree with that. That's not considered as. The Islamic history never had that. I don't know where that came from. Never had that. In any case, then you're going to say Al-Fatiha. So you're going to say Al-Fatiha. Everybody here know how to say Al-Fatiha? Everybody has to say Al-Fatiha. So I don't have to have you recite it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Yawm Iddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. Okay, so everybody have that basic Al-Fatiha, right? Okay. And then, after you recite Al-Fatiha, you're going to recite some portion of the Quran. Doesn't have to be big. There's some talk that Khalid Abdul Walid, who was known as one of the great fighters for Islam, in jihad, he was the leader of the Sahaba, one of the leaders of the Sahaba, a general in warfare against the disbelievers. But when it came to the Quran, he wasn't so proficient. He always said very small surahs from the Quran whenever he had to lead the prayer. And some people say that they don't even think he had memorized Juz Alma. He didn't know the first juz of the Quran, which, typically speaking, is what every imam knows at least that juz and more. But he wasn't considered as a great Quranic reciter, but he was a great leader of men. and therefore, you know, he was one of the legendary generals of Islam. So the reason that he didn't have to be Hafiz the whole Quran in order to lead them is because Islam doesn't require that. What it says is that if you can recite at least an ayah of the Quran, you have fulfilled what's called the Sunnah Mu'akkada. The Sunnah Mu'akkada, the major Sunnah, is to recite at least one ayah from the Quran after Al-Fatiha. Now, if you recite more, it's mustahab. It's good. It's good if you can recite more. It's better for you if you can recite enough to get to the end of the surah. But if you can't, okay, in the Quran, they have places in each surah, like let's say it's a big surah like a Baqarah, Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah has the biggest surah in the Quran. So when you reading it, you're not going to read the whole surah in one sitting generally. Some people they do it. Some Hafiz do it, especially during Ramadan. But generally, nobody today really reads the whole surah. So in the surah itself, there's cutoff points. It looks like a E, a fancy written E. When you see those in a part of the Quran, that means that part is done, and it goes to another part. So if you can at least read until you get to those ending parts, you've got the mustahab as well as the Sunnah Mu'akkada. You understand what I said? Okay. But if you can't, and you can only recite a small part, then you have to recite what small parts you can recite. And that takes care of the sunnah in your prayer. Right. And after that, you're going to do ruku. Right? You're going to say takbir, Allahu Akbar, and you're going to make ruku. The ruku is a fard. If you don't make it, you lose something that will make you lose your prayer. So you have to make it. And after you make ruku, what are you going to say in ruku? Subhan Rabbil Azim. That's the only thing you say in ruku. No dua, no Quran, nothing. Just Subhan Rabbil Azim. That's all you say in ruku. Then you're going to stand from ruku. When you stand from ruku, you're going to say Sami Allah Liman Hamida. And then, because if you're praying by yourself, you're going to say both things. Sami Allah Liman Hamida, then Rabbana wa lakal hamdu. Okay? And then there's more to say, but that's the basic thing that you say. If you can say more, you say more, but that's the basic thing. Alright? And that standing from ruku is also considered as a fard. So if you don't stand from ruku, like sometimes people make their prayer, but instead of them standing all the way up and waiting for a little minute or a second or two, they halfway stand and then they go into what's called sujood. If they do that, then they miss standing from the ruku, and that means that they missed a fard. So if they don't fix it, their prayer would become invalid. Okay? Only reason I'm talking to you ladies like this, quickly like that, is because I know that by now you all should know how to make your prayers basically. So I'm just saying some things that if you want to ask me, you can ask me to make sure that you fully understand what you're supposed to be doing in this prayer. Because the difference between the Muslims and the non-Muslims is this prayer. See? The main thing.
Moving a finger,
A tashahud. Okay. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barakallahu Muhammad. This question has two or three different answers, depending on which system you're following. They have some people who believe that to say a tayatul with your finger raised this is not so big enough for us to make complaint against anybody. People have the right. If they want to do like this, stick their finger out from a fist, or if they want to keep their finger raised until they say all the way through the original tashahhud until the Salat Nabi, until the prayer for themselves and the Muslims, it's okay. I mean, nobody. You'll never find anybody who's going to argue with somebody about the way they raise their finger. It's not enough to make an issue. But because you asked the question, this is beeping. Pull it out. Somebody send you an email, it looks like. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barakallahu ala Muhammad. So yes, that raising of the finger is not enough that we really, debate it with anybody. You can tell by the way people. You can tell by the way people do their prayer how much education they've had. Also, like somebody who knows about the prayer, if they stand away and watch the way people praying, they can tell by the way they're praying how much education they have. Like this, in the madhab of Imam Malik, there's sometimes when you raise your hands and sometimes when you don't raise your hands. When you say the takbir for ruku, you say Allahu Akbar and you make ruku. When you come from ruku, you say Sami Allahu liman hamida and you raise your hands again. But you don't make another one to do sujood. You just say Allahu Akbar and you do sujood. When you come from saying a tashahhud in the second rakat and you stand up, you say Allahu Akbar. You raise your hands. But you don't do it when you stand up for the third or fourth rakat. Only the second rakat do you do it when you come from saying a tashahhud. Okay?
Yeah, I'm going to write them down.
Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barakallahu ala Muhammad. What happened, Sharon? So, I'm telling you that because I see many people who, they just raise their hands like this for everything. This is not, no madhab, no school, no imam, no teacher of fiqh, nobody ever tells them to do that. This is just their own idea. Okay? Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barakallahu ala Muhammad. So, okay, so you have that much you understand. So now, we go to the ending of our prayer now, is to make salams. Making of salams is the last part of everybody's prayer. The mother of Imam Malik say the salam to the right side by the imam or the single person is the end of the prayer. But because we live in a society, I'm going to explain. I had the same discussion with the brothers this afternoon. Because we're in a society that has limited education, the people are following what is the most popular thing. It's not that it's the only thing, it's not that it's the best thing, it's just that it's the thing that is most popularized. The reason that it's most popularized is because the people in Saudi have the money to spread the idea that they have for Islam, like this. All over the Islamic world, depending on what country you come from, you have variations, various ideas about the way Islam should be practiced. Basically, they're the same. The aqidah is always the same. You know what I mean when I say the aqidah? The aqidah means the things of faith. We believe in Allah is one, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the prophet and messenger, he's the end of the prophets and messengers, no other message is going to come. There's life after death, there's heaven and hell, there's angels, there's the shaitan, billahi. These type of things are what they call aqidah. They are things that make up faith. So all Muslims, even though they have variations on their practice, the aqidah is always the same. If somebody's aqidah is different, they won't necessarily be considered as a Muslim. Like if somebody says there's another prophet that's going to come after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, their aqidah is off. So then they wouldn't be considered as having the proper aqidah, and so that would be a testament against them as being a Muslim. So you can't you can't agree with half of the principles and disagree with the other half. You have to agree with all of them. So everybody's aqidah is basically the same, but it's the practice, the Islam, that sometimes in the practice it's a little bit different. So if you go to places in Africa, right, where the madhab is predominantly Africa, Morocco, all of those kind of places, the Islam is basically by the madhab of Imam Malik. By the madhab of Imam Malik in Africa. If you go to places like Pakistan, the madhab is basically Abu Hanifa. See? So those countries, and like in Egypt, Imam Shafi is big. But look, those countries are not wealthy countries. They're not wealthy. So you may get a small amount of information coming out of those countries about like a madhab or some kind of a fatwa or something like that. But because they're not wealthy countries, their methodology is not propagated all over the world. Now Saudi is different. Saudi is so wealthy that their information, the way they practice, is all over the world. Not necessarily because it's the best or it's the only, but because they have the wealth to make it known all over the Islamic world. And therefore they have become the primary voice of what is considered right. You understand what I said? You got to really understand this, because a lot of times people that don't understand this, and then they see something different and they say, oh, that's a bid'ah, that's bad. No, what it is that you only seen what is popularized. So if you see something else and not know about its history or not know about where it came from or something like that, you may not consider it as being a part of Islam. But in fact, you would be absolutely wrong. That's the difference between people who have education and people who just follow whatever is readily available. Okay. That's the best way I can explain it to you. Now, in regards to these salams, the popular way is to say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First the right side, then the left side. That's the most popular way. But that's not like known as the only way, because in the madhab of Imam Malik, the Imam says, Assalamu alaikum to the right side. He don't make a salam to the left side. The person who is praying behind the Imam, he will say, Assalamu alaikum after the Imam, and then he would say, Assalamu alaikum to the direction that the Imam is praying in. And then if somebody was on his left side that caught at least one whole rakat of the prayer with them, they would say Assalamu alaikum to that person on the left side too. So I teach this to the people of the madhab, but I don't recommend that you do that in your everyday activity with the general public. Only you should do it with people, because like let's say I got a group are going to come and pick me up after your class to take me to meet with Sheikh Tijani Sisi. He is one of the 50 most powerful Muslims in the world, Sheikh Tijani. And so when I'm with that group, if I say Imam Malik's way, everybody understands what I'm doing. Those things are sunnah. Is she on the phone? Are you might? Oh, those are the questions. Okay, sister, hold on. Other than those, when you see people, they do a lot of strange things. But those things that they're doing, they're their things. They're not the Islamic things. So I gave them a lecture today that you can't use the general public as your meter for what is Islamic. Don't do that. The general public is not representing Islam. They're representing their own ideas themselves, but they are not representing Islam. The people who are representing Islam are the scholars of Islam, the people who follow some methodology that is traced back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like people of madhab, they have a history that goes back from student to teacher to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have a methodology. The Sahaba, the Tabaeen, the Tabaeen, all of those follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After them, the scholars of Islam. All of those are considered as Salih Salihin. It means these are people that we have to look at for our example on what we should follow to call ourselves practicing al-Islam. Okay, so to make it even clearer, in the masjids today, people are talking about their business, how to make more money. They're laughing and making jokes. They're talking about all kinds of things that have nothing to do with ibadah. And these things, if the Prophet ﷺ companions were available, they would take sticks into the mosque and beat these people. Because this is not the Islamic way inside. This is bad etiquette, bad adab for the masjid. The masjid should only be for ibadah, in some kind of way of worship. You should either be making prayers, making some kind of zikr, reading the Quran, and primary one is to be in a student-teacher environment. These are all things that are considered as ibadah. To listen to the khutbah for Jummah, for the imam to make some kind of small talk after a prayer. All of these things are what should be done in the masjid. Other than that, there should be no talk, there should be no fashion show, there should be no dancing, there should be no loud talking, there should be no laughter and talking about things that are not a part of ibadah. None of this stuff. When the people go into the mosque, I see the ladies go behind the curtain and they start to gossip. This is all not lawful. This is bad Islamic manners in the masjid. The main reason is that the angels are in the mosque consistently, and these type of talks that are outside of ibadah are disturbing to them, first of all. So they will testify against you when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next thing after that are the dizens of the mosque, the people who constantly go into the mosque for their ibadah. They like peace and quiet. So if people are in there laughing and talking about business and doing all these different things, this was considered in the time of the Sahaba as a very bad action, and they would correct you. Abu Bakr Siddiq Umar Katabi, he found that as the time was changing after the death of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people were starting to become a little more lax, and they were starting to talk in the mosque about their goats and stuff, and the camels and different things. And so he built outside the mosque an area that they could leave the mosque and go to talk their business, so that they would know not to talk that business inside the mosque. But today, every mosque you go in, you find people doing the opposite. They're just talking about everything. I even hear them talking about what they watched on TV and all kinds of things that has nothing to do with ibadah. See? So if we followed them, we would be spreading this fitna, and by the time, our children get old enough, they won't even recognize Islam in the mosque. They'll think that this is all acceptable behavior. This is why you can't use the people as representative of what we should behave like. You have to study and know what Islam says. What is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What is the habit of his companions and their children and their children and the scholars of Islam? That's who we want to know for. Okay. Now, I know you ladies know the basis of making your prayer. So, when these other ladies come to these classes, I don't know what they said was supposed to come.
Inshallah, Sister Sky said she was coming. Sister Daneka, she let us know that she wouldn't be able to come today.
MashaAllah. Anyway, whenever you run into people like these, what they call the new shahada, they won't know how to make their prayers. It's your responsibility, to make sure that you give them that information. Okay? It's your responsibility. I'm not even gonna, one of the reasons that the Muslims like talking to me is because I don't beat around the bush. I tell them straight what they gotta do, what they're supposed to do. So I'm telling you straight, you're gonna be responsible for the new shahada. If they say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I didn't know how to make a prayer. He's gonna well, didn't you know Sister so and so? Was it? Yeah, then we passed it and stuff, and but she never told me anything about the prayer. This you don't want to have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because anytime Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gotta ask you why, he already know the answer. So if he gotta ask you why, that's a sign that you got a little problem. So my advice to all the Muslim people is when they're gonna make their actions, you gotta make your actions with the idea, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gonna like this action or not like this action? See? Because all of our work and our actions should be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for what people like or don't like, for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like and don't like. That's how our actions should be calculated. Okay. Now, you want to ask me anything else?
I have a problem trying to concentrate in the prayer. Is there a way you trying to stay?
The way that they recommend, Allahumma salli wa sallam barakallahu Muhammad. The way that they recommend is that when you say in your prayer in the Arabic language, generally we say in the words, we're trying to remember the words, but we don't know exactly what the words mean. So what they suggest is that, even for Arabic speaking people, is that they start to focus more on what the words mean. So when you're in your prayer and you're reciting the words, you're also thinking of that at the same time, what the words mean. So that means for us, non-people who didn't come up speaking Arabic in our native tongue, is that we have to look at the translation and the tafsir of the verses that we say often, and kind of memorize the meaning until when we saying them in Arabic, we're thinking them also of what they mean, and this will help you to keep your mind focused. Okay. Anything else?
Inshallah.
The sister's questions. Okay.
Question 1. What are the qualifications required, one, to be a student of knowledge, to an usta or an imam? Are the qualifications experience with regards to various societies as well as education?
If I understand the question exactly, to be a student doesn't require any particular qualifications. What it requires is that the person knows how to be quiet, polite to the teacher, and have a desire to learn for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they can do better. This is like the biggest requirement. It also helps that the person, has a sense, you're going to be a person who don't like authority in Islam. And, you know, it'll take maybe some time for the effect of Islam in your life to actually change your character. But Islam can do that. It just doesn't happen immediately. Like a lot of people think when they take Shahada, something magical happens and they become a different person than they was before. That's not exactly what happens. It takes some time and some effort to change character. You understand? This is why, you know, you find some people that took Shahada and, you know, you talk to them when they took Shahada, you talk to them 5 years later, they're the same person. Because they're not working for improvement. So they, you know, they may be telling themselves, I've been a Muslim for 5 years. Yeah, but what kind of Muslim? You know, you have no improvement because, you know, you're not dedicating yourself to changing character. Okay. Next.
What is the difference between akhlaq and adab?
I see the Arabic word akhla, I don't know what they mean. Because they may understand it as meaning something different. I don't know.
But having to do with manners.
Manners?
Yeah, I put that given 2 words.
Oh.
Interchangeably.
I understand. Manners is the same thing as, you know, adab means etiquette, basically, in our language. But etiquette and manners go together. So generally when the scholars talk about these two things, they try to differentiate them by certain behaviors. Like as I was talking about in the masjid. In the masjid, they call that adab al-masjid because the masjid has its own type of etiquettes that, you know, a person needs to follow that in order to be inclusive in the sunnah. Whereas the word manners, that generally deals with akhlaq, generally deals with person to person, with people in other people's houses, with your general attitude towards your neighbor, these things. So, you know, they break it into 2 different things because one has to do with the manners in which, like let's say if somebody comes into your house. They come into your house, the house has manners that you should fulfill and it has adab that you should fulfill. Both of them intermingle with the other one. But in the masjid, they basically call it adabul masjid because it has certain principles that it is not included in whether or not you say yes and thank you. You understand? It's more to the physical part of what you do inside the mosque. But basically those 2 things, they are hand in hand. Also character. Good manners, good etiquette, good character. So to cover all of those things, they say good character. And basically that's the way they separate it in Islam. Okay. More? This phone went off?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, this one. Okay.
Is Qanut a sunnah of witter prayer rather than a rukn?
Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barakallahu ala Muhammad. Okay, the Qanut is something that it's a sunnah, but it's not a sunnah mu'akkada. In other words, it's not a major sunnah. The Qanut is a sunnah, but it's not a major one that if you don't do it, that you have to do Sajud Saw. And also, each madhab or different schools of thought have different methodologies in the way they do the Qanut. Like Abu Hanifa madhab, they do the Qanut in the third rakah in the witr after the ruku. After the ruku. In the madhab Imam Malik, they do the qanut in the second rakah in the morning prayer. After you recite al-Fatiha and Quran, before you do the ruku, they make qanut. Qanut in the madhab Imam Malik is done in the second rakah before ruku. Now, also they have the qanut is basically the same, but different scholars have slightly different variations of the qanut. The one that they do in this madhab, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruka wa nu'minu bika wa natawakkalu alayka wa nuthni alayka al-khayra kullahu nashkuruka wa la naghfiruk wa nahnu laka wa nahla'u wa natruku man yaghfiruk. Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa ilayka nusalli wa nasjudu wa ilayka nasa wa nafidu narju rahmataka wa nakhafu adhabaka inna adhabaka al-jinn bil kafirin mulhik. I'm going to teach that to you as a part of this madhab. It's a special thing in the madhab of Imam Malik to say it in the second rakah before ruku in the morning prayer. But it has a certain time that once that time is gone, you can't make that ruku, that qanut in that prayer anymore. Once, like let's say if you wake up late and you haven't made your Make Salat in the morning, when it comes time where you normally would make qanut, you can't do it. You can only do it in its exact right time. So if you wake up and look like the sun is going to be rising, or you kind of like an hour or so away from the normal time of your prayer, that's not a time, or the skies start to become light, you can't make qanut then. You can only make qanut in your morning prayer, second rakah, before ruku, after reciting al-Fatiha and Quran, is when it has to be in the exact right time. Once that time is gone, the ability to make qanut is gone, as you like it.
Regarding what the scholars state is the age of reason or understanding, what does that mean? And is there a particular chronological age? Is it intellectual? Is it spiritual? Or is it on the onset of puberty?
It depends on what you're making them responsible for. Children generally are considered as becoming responsible by the time they're 12 years old. Some people say 10. By the time they become that age, they should know that they have to make their prayers. If they have the ability, they should know, the basis of Allah is one, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is his prophet and his messenger. They should know the basis of that there's a life after death. These basic things, the basic principles of Islam, they should have been told that. They should be being told that on a consistent basis. But they don't have like all of the full responsibilities as an adult. So, you're not going to beat them down because, they're learning how to become an adult Muslim. Technically, they say, when the kid becomes like 12 years old and he's not trying to learn, then you have the right to kind of beat them, but not severely. They don't want you to try to beat Islam into a kid. They say, first you should try other means, and take away his TV, take away his toys, something like that. But, other than that, age is not necessarily the sign of wisdom. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. Ibn Abbas, as a young man, must have been What does this surah mean to you? Be careful. Ibn Abbas and say, it means to me that the Prophet ﷺ will soon be leaving us. So when he said that, all of the old people, all of the old Muslims, older Muslims, they immediately realized the wisdom that this youth had. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala an said, now you see why I let him sit here. Because, his wisdom far exceeded his chronological age. So you can't put an age on that. See? And Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barakallahu Muhammad. What we have seen is that all people are different. So sometimes, what may appear bad in one way, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He got His way of using people for different things. Like, I'll give you for instance, they have some Hafiz children that in our terminology would be called autistic. Because, they do some things that, the other kids not doing. But these highly functional autistic kids, if they focus in on something, they can really master it. Because their attention span on that one thing, it stays on that thing for a long period of time. So a lot of times they become great Hafiz in Islam. See? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created them in a way that they can, that thing that they call autistic actually is a benefit to the Muslims. Because they have the ability to master the Hafiz, the Quran. Because their brain is constructed in a way that once it gets on something and it wants to do it, it focuses on that and it stays there until they complete it. And it keeps going back to it over and over and over again, which is necessary to become a Hafiz. Okay. So, chronologically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say once a person becomes 60 years old, He's done His part to that person. Like this. What it means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you all your life up until 60, and He's always trying to persuade you in different ways. He's sending you different information. He's putting you in different positions. But by the time you're 60, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say He don't have to do that with you anymore. Either you have it or you don't. He would like for you to have it, but if you don't, that's by your choice. You understand? If it's available to you by the time you're 60 years old and you haven't taken it, that's your problem. Because He's given you a full life, a lifetime that you could have done something better for yourself. So He considers that He has done His part for you. And then by the time you're 60, if you haven't gotten it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not going to keep trying to make you get it. See? He's done His part by giving you 60 years of life that gave you the opportunity for 60 years to get it right. Now, if you get it right when you're 65, alhamdulillah, He won't reject you, but
He wasted a lot of time.
He wasted a lot of time, exactly. What else you have?
That's it.
That's the end of your questions?
She had more, but she
That's
said,
it for me.
You want more?
Inshallah. No, not right now, but I just want to thank you for saying what you just said about the age of 60, because it helped clarify that
Alhamdulillah.
for me.
Okay.
Sometimes when we're in the midst of learning one thing, other things come up
Inshallah.
that are really important.
Alhamdulillah. So continue to do like you do. If you have your questions written out, it makes it easier for me to answer. It's more expedient.
Yes.
Okay, good. Anything you need?
No, that's it.
No, I was talking to the students. That was that in front of me.
Give me a general question.
Whatever you like.
Actually, it's concerning my son. Actually, like when I go to the masjid, and sometimes I have to keep him with me on the sister's side, because there's nobody really watching him on the brother's side. And sometimes I get complaints that he shouldn't be over here, he should be on the brother's side. But since of his disability, he has to be with me. But he's 12, so I get, sometimes little complaints from the sisters, so he can't be over here. So I'm like, how to tell them or what to do in those type of situations, because they don't understand his situation, what he has. And sometimes they come out to me in the wrong way, and I'm trying to be like, I don't want to be rude or mean or anything. So I'm trying to figure out what actually to tell them when it does happen. Sometimes I don't avoid the masjid, but when I have nobody to watch them, it's kind of like I have to have them with me.
Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. This is going to be an ongoing problem for you. And my advice to you would be, you weren't here when I was giving the Muslims some information. This book is called Women in the Masjid and Islam. This is published by the Young Men Muslims Association, and they are from South Africa. This book gives a lot of information on how women should behave in the mosque, if they're in the mosque at all. But your specific question, I'm going to give you this. Your specific question, you see, they're going to complain about him because he's tall enough and big enough to be considered as a young man. They don't understand at all what you're trying to explain to them. And if they're foreigners, they're going to understand even less. See? So my advice would be, if you don't have somebody that you can leave him with and you have to go to the mosque, don't go. If you don't have somebody that you can leave him with and you want to go to the mosque, don't go. Because they're not going to understand him sitting in a room that's only occupied by women. They're not going to understand it. Even if you try to explain it, you're going to have to explain this every 15, 20 minutes. Because some other sister's going to come in behind the other ones that already you explained it to, and then you're going to have to explain it to them. And then they may make some big protest or be nasty or something like that. It's going to be a problem. So this is Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. This is to say that if you don't exactly have to go, if you go for some business or for some reason, that you have to go, then that's different. But just in general, I wouldn't take him in that environment. It's gonna be what they call fitna. It's gonna make confusion because they're not gonna understand, and then you're gonna have to keep trying to explain it to them. So whatever you went to the mosque to do, you're gonna be uncomfortable trying to fulfill that.
And like for Juma.
For Juma.
Eid and stuff like that when I go.
Yeah.
Get little,
Yeah, but you don't. Juma is not incumbent on women.
I don't go too often. I go.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if it's only occasionally, then yeah, you got to prepare yourself that, if I have to take him with me, and then I'm gonna have to hear something, but I'll get my Juma in.
Just with some sisters, they come out, they're like,
I know.
in a mean way.
I know.
And you try not to be, say anything.
Because they don't understand.
They don't understand.
They don't understand. It's not that they try to be mean. They don't understand, and they think they doing the Islam. They're giving you the Islamic advice, but they don't have the right knowledge to give you the Islamic advice because they don't understand the situation. It's like in order to give good Islamic advice, you also got to have some knowledge of the situation. See, so my suggestion would be, to have that discussion with the imam, and then maybe the imam can make some talk to the ladies in general that will clarify that whole situation. prayers with this all the time since the last time we talked. You know, Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. We all have our things, you know. I got mine too that I'm dealing with. And, you know, we do as best we can with our ability, and then, you know, the rest belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to keep asking Him to help us with these situations that we can't fix ourselves. You know, even if we think we can fix it ourselves, we can't. You know, we need Him to help us, you know. So, yeah, okay, I'm going to give you this. I want you to read this. Everything, don't take it exactly literally, but for the most part, they are right. You know, like the internet ladies are wrong. I'm going to tell you honestly, 100%, the internet ladies are making a big mistake in their interpretation of what is required for a Muslim woman in Islam. The day I started this class for ladies, a lot of ladies are sitting here. I gave you all some advice. I say, look, a lot of ladies deal with the sheikh or the imam based on their relationships throughout their life with men. See? If they had a brother who was mean to them or abusive or, you know, they were married to somebody, he wasn't a good representative for Islam, then women have a tendency to take that with them when they deal with the imam and the sheikh. So a lot of times they're not going to appreciate whatever he's saying because they've already fixed a man-hate type of idea in their mind. You understand? That's impossible to learn in that way from anybody, any man. If you already have your mind fixed in that way and you don't know how to overcome it, you'll never learn. So a lot of them go to the machine to try to get their Islam from it, rather than, because if the man tell them something that they don't agree with, then they don't want to be around anymore. Not that they're right, they'd be absolutely wrong. But because it's something that they don't agree with and they already have this man-hate type of thing going on in their mind, they're going to abscond. They're going to run away. And if they do that everywhere they go, what kind of Islam are they getting? So they go to the machine and then they try to program their own Islamic lessons from the machine. It's wrong. You can't progress like that Islamically. This is nonsense. Okay? So all of the scholars say scholarship takes a teacher, somebody who, like I'll give you for instance, big ulama, scholar, he's a great scholar in history. He took a liking to a sheikh from what's called Tasawwuf, from Sufi. So he goes to him, he says, I want to be a practitioner of this Sufi. And this is a big sheikh. Like every place he go, they roll out the red carpet and everything. So the Sufi teacher tell him, oh, okay. You want to be a murid? Murid means one of the people who follow this way. You want to be a murid? Okay, here, take this brush, take this soap, and go clean the toilets in the bathroom. So the big sheikh takes the brush, takes the soap, go in the bathroom, he's cleaning the toilets. So he's doing this for a period of time. You know. Now the other murids, they see him, they know who he is, they know he's a big sheikh, he's got all this knowledge and everything, and they like questioning, why is the sheikh making him do that? You know, he's already like a big sheikh. So eventually the teacher of the Tasawwuf, he explains to them, he explains to the person he sent to clean the bathrooms with all the other people around, he says, well, sometimes a person don't know what they need That's why they come to somebody that can see them clearer than they see themselves. And if they trust that person enough, he can help them find themselves. And this is what he needed. He needed somebody to lower his estimation of himself and make him humble. And because he trusted me enough to allow me to give him that assignment, and he kept trying to fulfill that assignment, now he's so many times more advanced than he was before. Without any new knowledge coming into his mind, but a change of his character gave the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the ability to go into his character, and now it's made him a much greater ulama than he was before, because he learned humbleness and humility. So look, when you go to these different ulama, sheikhs, and people like that, I consider myself as one. We observe you. We observe you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our students. We always pray all the time for our students' success. All the time. And what comes with that is a sense of awareness of your students. So you get to see them in a clearer way than they see themselves. And so a good administrator of that is that we have to try and help you even though you may not like the medicine. But after a while, if you take the medicine and you realize that medicine is helping, it's really helping, then the people start to become easier to feed the medicine to, because they can see the effect that the medicine is having. But if you don't give it a chance, and as soon as it don't go your way, you run away, that means that you're never going to progress. Because your mind, you will always be stuck in what your mind tells you is the answer. And you can't know all that answer unless you have done all of the things that's necessary to quantitate yourself, to qualify yourself. If you haven't done that, you're going to keep lying to yourself. Okay. I want to make you know that. Because, like a lot of times, the people don't realize that other people see them clearer than you think. They, Sheikh Hassan, right? Sheikh Hassan was such a luminary that when he looked at you, you knew he was seeing you. There was no question. When he looked at you, he didn't even have to say anything. It's like it was coming out of his insides and through his eyes. You knew that he was seeing you, and like so people would like they kind of like either they stay close to him or they stayed far away from him. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that. So you want to ask me anything else? You sure? You ladies are not taking advantage of me. The stuff I'm telling you now is like elementary school. This is elementary school. Go do your research. You should go home, do some reading, ask some questions. Come back, talk to me. You'll be surprised. The men are different, but they're supposed to be different. There's a reason that they're different, because they're more exposed to the world outside. They're always hanging out with each other in the mosque and running around with each other all over the place, and like that. Ladies are not really supposed to be like that, but they are supposed to have the ability to learn just like men learn. So that's what I try to give you, that ability. So if you take advantage, alhamdulillah, but your desire, your needs are a little different, but we're all different people. Anybody ever want to get married? Before you go out, I tell you all this before, but nobody's listening to me. Before you go running outside, talking about I love you, and marrying a guy, that later on you'll be saying, now why did I marry this guy? Talk to me, maybe, but I'm going to try to deal with it But you know, then after like a month or two, you be like, I can't deal with that, you know, because it's not your nature. Some things just not in your nature to deal with, you know. I married a sister one time to this brother, right? I know you gotta go. Married this sister to this brother, right? He's a nice guy, good student, diligent working Muslim, you know, had a job, place for her to stay and everything, fulfilled all the necessary things. They got married. 2 days later, she calls me on the phone. Sheikh Ameen, I don't think I can stay with this brother. Really? What's the problem? Well, all the time, you know, I was meeting him to have talks and everything. He always had his kufi on with his turban. But as soon as we got married and I saw him, he took his kufi and his turban off, his head is too big. No, this is fact. I'm not making this up. This is a fact. And she was like, I can't stay with this brother because every time I see his head, it turns me off. His head is too big. I tried everything. You know, I talked to them. I tried everything. Nothing work. She refused to stay with this brother because he had a big forehead that was, you know, and she didn't realize it because he had the turban on all the time. Okay? So, you know, there's things like this is, I can help you, but you got to let me help you. You know, don't just ignore me and say, yeah, and then after everything go crazy, like a lot of times what happens, and then they go calling me at the end when everything is a disaster, Sheikh, help. I'm like, well, why you didn't come to me from the beginning? Then you wouldn't have had this situation, inshallah.